Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the last session of the WSA Congress 2021. This is the session now, Hack the Education Gap. And please do not forget, though, about joining us tomorrow for the WSA Academy, a day full of workshops for your personal skill enhancement. You will find the link in our chat. I'm now really happy to introduce our moderator of this session, the one and only Rudy Laddaga. He's an education wizard, but also WSA board member, expert, and multiple WSA winner. Rudy, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Manu. Hello, everyone. My name is Rudy Laddaga, as Manu said. I'm from Mexico, and right now I'm at Chiapas, which is my hometown, and is the border state with Central America. I am the founder of Gnius Club, the first digital innovation lab for kids, and winner of the 2017 WSA Education category. Thank you for joining us in the most important panel of the event. I always say that if you fix education, you can fix the rest of the world, because education helps to transform human beings. If we want a better world, we need better people, and education does that. And I'm super excited because I got to moderate this amazing panel filled with wisdom from all over the world. To the panel, I'm honored to share this session with you guys. And before we start the introduction, let's set the context. Education has been an industry that has been facing disruption in the last years. The pandemic has accelerated that disruption. Today, schools are closed all over the world, and technology is still out of reach at least 500 million students during the pandemic. So this panel will fix the world in 1 hour, as you will see. No pressure there for the panel, no pressure. I know that you're bright people up to this challenge, so let's start. The first round of participation will be in alphabetical order, so we help to hack the gender gap. And so, as I called you, please tell us where you're calling us from and what do you do and how are you hacking the education gap in your area in these pandemic times. So let's start first with my friend Badr and the founder of Lamsa from the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you, WSA. Thank you, Rudy, my good friend. And as Manuela said, the wizard of education and a big mentor to all of us. Thank you. So my name is Badr. I'm the founder of Lamsa, based out of Abu Dhabi. What we do is focus on democratizing access to early childhood development and personalized learning for young children. And throughout COVID, it's been interesting, as Rudy set the context, and it was particularly interesting for us because while governments, public sectors, private sectors were trying to cover and address gaps related to older kids who are getting into university or from university to the job markets, we found ourselves quite alone in the field of early childhood development and taking care of the younger kids. And it's been a very, very interesting journey for us, developing overnight. I can't imagine a day that has passed since the pandemic started that we got a good night's sleep. And I look forward to exchanging ideas and thoughts and solving the world's problems in 1 hour with the leadership of our great moderator, Rudy.
Thank you so much, Badr. Then our next panel member, it's from Kenya, Claire Mongeau. She's the co-founder of M-Shule and also a WSA winner. Claire, where are you calling us from and what are you doing to hack the education gap?
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for having me. My name is Claire Mongeau, and I'm American, but I'm calling you from Nairobi, Kenya. And I am the founder of M-Shule, which is using SMS to bridge the gap to learners who don't have internet or smartphones, but still want to continue learning at home. So we use text message and artificial intelligence to help learners build their math and English skills, either after class or during the pandemic.
Thank you so much, Claire. And now from Germany, but he's not from Germany, we have the founder of AMBOSS, also a WSA winner, Omar Cherkaoui. He's how are you doing? Where are you calling us from? And what are you doing to hack the education gap? I think we have a connectivity gap. Oh, here it is.
Yeah, sorry, had some challenges here. Hi, everyone. My name is Omar Cherkaoui. I'm indeed from Morocco. I'm calling you from Berlin, Germany. I am not the founder of AMBOSS, but I'm the head of the Global Health Initiative here at AMBOSS, through which the Global Health Initiative is a nonprofit initiative through which we support medical schools in Sub-Saharan Africa with medical education resources. And this is exactly how we hack that education gap. Many medical schools all around Sub-Saharan Africa have faced interruption because of COVID. And we work directly with them and we support them. We support the students as well as the lecturers with medical education and capacity building to support them continuing their medical education. So I'm very much looking forward to this discussion and looking forward to the questions.
Thank you, Omar. And last but not least, we have our EdTech entrepreneur from Syria, which is Sana Hawasly. Sana, how are you and where are you calling us from?
Hello. Hi, I'm very happy to join you in this panel with this educational technology entrepreneurs. I'm very pleased. I'm calling today from Syria. I'm Syrian and I'm now based in Damascus. And I'm the co-founder of WSA, which is a startup that is tackling the issue of the technology literacy of coding, programming, and physical computing for children to be literate and to build the inventions of tomorrow. So we are working on different toolkits that is physical and digital at the same time that helps children to tackle the challenges of the words with their ideas. So through COVID, we went through a lot of days thinking of what things we should tackle right now. So we thought that we should tackle the challenge of accessibility. So we have to make this knowledge accessible as much as possible for all people inside Syria and outside Syria to share the content and have it standardized. So I'm very happy to join you today.
Thank you so much, Sana. So the first question that I will ask you guys, as you know, digital transformation has been something that schools were doing at their own pace. Even though COVID pandemic put pressure to accelerate this process, parents are still taking out their children from schools looking for new alternatives, from homeschooling to support bubbles. So the first question will be, when the pandemic ends, how do you envision education? How is this going to transform the education system in the world? And if someone wants to raise their hands to start with this, or then I will go back in alphabetic. Okay, Badr.
So yeah, I think there's no going back, Rudy. I think, yes, we all hope that things will settle down and certain aspects of our lives will go back to the way it was. At least I hope we can stop wearing masks at some point. But I think the educational systems, there's no going back, especially from a parent's perspective. I think what happened through COVID was parents got a real deep look into what's under the hood in the educational systems, and they were able to see the gaps that exist there. So I think I'm a big believer that they want to take over, parents want to take over the ownership of their child's or children's education. Before COVID, they kind of outsourced that to the education systems. And I think a lot of parents want to bring that back into the household, just like they care about their health, just like they care about their food, their shelter, their clothes. I think their learning responsibility is coming back to the household. And I don't think that's going to be outsourced to the education systems anymore. So just a quick answer to your question, Rudy, I don't think it's going back to the way it was. I think we will see different manifestations of how that triangle works between the parents' education system and the students. And I'll give my colleagues room to answer that as well.
So just before we go to another of the panelists, just tell us one thing that you see that is not going back.
Rudy, I don't think content, I think the role of the teacher is never going to be the same again. Mm-hmm. That might be a little bit extreme, but you know, I'd like to think of myself as someone that can probably see where things are going in this field. I don't think teachers will be responsible to run the classroom the way they used to be with the presence of lots of content that could be repurposed. And we saw that. We saw the usage of whether it's multimedia or videos that can be recorded once or built once and then reused across different clusters or bubbles of students. The teacher's role, I think, changes into a connector, into someone that can disseminate things, can foster social emotional development, teamwork, and guide different students to do different things. But I don't think the role of a teacher will remain as a content delivery a vehicle as it used to be before.
Thank you very much, Badr. You're right. Teachers are the ones that are also facing quite challenges right now with the pandemic. Claire, how do you envision education after the pandemic?
Great question. I was actually going to raise my hand to go next, so I appreciate you going in alphabetical order again. So I think that the situation in Kenya and in the rest of Sub-Saharan Africa is actually a bit different. Even before the pandemic, 80% of the population doesn't have regular access to internet or smartphones. And at least in Kenya, a good 83, I believe, % of the population is in the informal economy. So parents actually, by necessity, had to, as we were saying, outsource education to the education system. But then when the pandemic hit, they really didn't have time or the resources to do homeschooling or fill in the gaps. So now that schools have reopened in Kenya, people have kind of very quickly returned to a certain status quo, despite some attempts to go to digital learning. But there still is a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of concern about how are we going to deal with the ongoing situation? What is the future of learning? So I think what this has shown for Kenya and Sub-Saharan Africa is there really needs to be a big push towards that accessibility of digital learning options. So I foresee a future in which there are more blended learning opportunities, also more practical-based learning experiences, which is where the education system is going, with the goal of having schools as centers for coaching and learning, but then learning pods that can go out and engage in different practical activities, and then supplements from digital tools from around the world. This is my dream, and I think this is a similar dream for all of us now that we've gone through this situation. So it's been a very interesting, I think, learning experience, seeing how little digital infrastructure there was and how we can try to start leapfrogging those gaps.
Thank you, Claire. You know, you're right what you're saying, and here in Mexico we're facing the same thing. We don't have broadband connection, and parents have been using WhatsApp to basically. So we're going to come on that later. But let us see what Omar has to say on how he envisions the education system after the pandemic.
I have to say I agree very much with what Claire said. I'm working directly with medical schools in Sub-Saharan Africa, so most of my work is really in Sub-Saharan Africa. And as much as I want to say that COVID-19 created a new norm, and I do believe that at least with medical education, when it comes to preclinical education, that would be defined as a new norm, but that will be mostly in most of the high-income countries. And I think the low-middle-income countries will probably be challenged by this norm, and I'm not sure how that will be in the future. if we don't give them all the support that they need in terms of access. And all of the discussions that I've been having with medical schools in Sub-Saharan Africa, I keep hearing the exact same thing. There is an issue with access to internet, bandwidth. Mobile data is quite expensive. There are some power outages as well happening in the country. So all of these make learning for students and for the lecturers as well quite challenging. There is also that shortage of medical professionals in Sub-Saharan Africa, meaning that these countries cannot afford to interrupt their medical education, yet they did. And these professionals are usually the ones asked to teach the future generation of healthcare professionals. But these were called on the front line to fight COVID. And so there is also that shortage of professionals and lecturers that can prepare virtual classes to teach their students. So I have to say, as much as I would love this to be kind of a new norm in a way, I think there are still a lot of barriers and challenges that we still need to fix in many regions around the world.
Thank you, Omar. Maybe thinking of boxing our solution as a whole system that doesn't need connection could be an alternative, right? To deliver all these kind of content, because right now, if we depend on connectivity, it's exactly what you're saying. The gap still on connectivity very, very huge in different countries. Sana, how do you envision education after the pandemic?
Actually, I can relate to all things that have been said by my colleagues. As Badr said, we're moving forward, so we're not going back. Teachers and students learned a lot of skills that are really essential for their life forward and for their lifelong learning process. So self-learning, self-discipline, to be tech literate, to search for opportunities and being curious are things that are happening right now. And I really hope that we are having them in the future. In the context of Syria, unfortunately, we have a lot of challenges, like the infrastructure, the economic collapse, and maybe the culture, the resistance of the people for such learning. But right now, and once the schools and universities were closed completely in the quarantine last year, people were encouraged to search for opportunities that are available online. And at that time, a lot of initiatives and companies made some scholarships for those Syrian students inside and outside Syria. And through these experiences, people were more encouraged to do a lot of initiatives in that specific field. So now people are having a lot of initiatives for and scholarships for Syrian to go through MOOCs and for Syrian children to go into specific online experiences that help them in their schools. So getting immersed to these experiences was a luxury before, and it is now also a luxury for some underprivileged people, but at least it is happening. And if sometime we had a serious strategy to make this accessible for everyone, so the education will get very, very much better than previous and than the current situation right now.
Thank you, Sana. You make that 2 points that are quite interesting. The first one is that indeed, you know, after now kids are focusing on other things, creativity, you said curiosity, and this is important because now we are taking the focus out of the curriculum, which was very academic, and now put it into the life skills that matters for the 21st century. So I think that one of the good things that you just said is that the pandemic has put our eyes and our focus in a different direction that not necessarily depends on technologies for us to develop it, right? So yeah. Thank you. That was a very good point. And so you both, all of you said, and that was exactly my next question. It has to do with connectivity, right? One of the most important challenges that education is facing right now is the lack of connectivity. Just to give you an example, here in Mexico, it's more like in Kenya, only 15% of the population has access to broadband internet. So because of this, public schools are using WhatsApp to teach, and parents are now having a more active role in education. But they don't have the time to spend in education because they have to provide to their family. So there is a very interesting challenge there. How are we going to hack the connectivity gap? And I want to start with Claire, because Claire, you kind of already solved it because you are using the resources that you have. If you don't have internet, access to mobile internet, but you're even though you're doing it with your company.
Yes, exactly. So when I was looking at some of these education challenges, and connectivity was one of the biggest ones that my co-founder and I identified almost 5 years ago now when we started M-Shule, because we were looking at there's such power in personalized learning and AI to drive learning impacts. But when, as I mentioned, Kenyans aren't online regularly and they don't have the smart devices. But what we do have is text. Everyone knows how to text. And especially in Kenya and East Africa with mobile money and M-Pesa, people are on their phones all the time. So we said, how can we use this current behavior? How can we use the current devices, but still provide some of these incredible impacts? So that's where we came up with this idea of having a SMS chatbot that can provide interactive, self-paced skill development tools that can just take even as little as 10 minutes a day for a student, maybe while their parent is, washing or cooking dinner, and just using their parents' phones that they already have. So they don't have to make any investment or wait for, these devices to come into their homes. So that's the approach that we took. And so far, we've actually seen a lot of really great impacts. Learners have been able to improve on exams. Actually, it does improve that parent-child relationship as well, because parents are saying, oh, well, what exactly are you doing on my phone? And sometimes they sit down and learn together, which is really great. And there was actually a study that just came out from Botswana, another company doing SMS-based learning, found that sometimes just simple SMS can improve or decrease in numeracy by up to 50% or more. So there really can be a lot of power even behind these very simple technologies, which I think is very exciting. So that's what we've been doing.
Thank you, Claire. Badr, would you like to take on this? Can you mute?
Yeah, the majority of our work is in, Lamsa as an app works best for high-end devices that can handle lots of animations and processing power. However, I can share some of the experiences with working with refugee children where they had very limited access to high-speed internet or even internet. So what we did, we ended up working on technologies that can deliver higher, interactivity, but even offline. So we use Bluetooth technology to operate as in like a local Wi-Fi. We went to the camps, the refugee camps, created a network protocol allowing the Bluetooth to kind of like disseminate, on a direct Wi-Fi connectivity. So we do, try to, whenever we face situations, specifically in the unfortunate situations where refugees have limited access to broadband, we did look at networking solutions. But the majority of our work goes to developing countries where there's access to good high-end devices and connectivity.
Thank you, Badr. There is an opportunity hack there because this idea of helping countries and villages without connectivity has gone as far as the one laptop per child program with Nicolas Negroponte, right? And you're doing amazing application that could be now. Storage is not an issue. It's been cheaper and cheaper. So now maybe you can put a complete solution into an iPad and then get it to this parts of the world that they don't have connectivity. And I think that's some of the things that have been doing during the pandemic in some countries.
Just to comment on that, we have done that. So we put the application on a single device, a community center in these places, and from there it can disseminate even to other devices, using device-to-device protocols. So, we've been experimenting on a few thousand devices there, and just looking at baselining all of that and the impact it has on children. So you're right, there's an absolute opportunity to hack that and provide access to children in those contexts that previously we couldn't.
Thank you, Badr. Sana, so how are we going to have the connectivity gap?
Yeah, actually, we already have a connectivity challenge since we are developing a physical computing breadboard that is connected with a mobile app. So we need this type of connectivity. And in the inside of that, most of people don't have the high quality smartphone that can operate this app and interact with this breadboard. So we are always looking forward to prototyping more accessible and more affordable standalone devices that can have all the operations that are needed, inspired by the one laptop per child, where they can generate the electricity and have the connectivity gap done. But at the same time, despite my work in Darati, in everyday life, when people ask me for helping, for example, schools in their digital transformation, we really are facing problems with connectivity. But at the same time, we have a successful, as Syrians in Syria, we have a successful experience in letting people learn in an affordable way, which is a virtual university called the Syrian Virtual University, which have a very low, needs only very low internet connection in order to operate, and this is really great. And the communication companies right now are offering bundles that are really affordable to for these students. So I think that we have this infrastructure as a country, but how to scale that into other contexts like schools and maybe for companies to invest. This is something to get researched.
Thank you, Sana. Just one question. Do you know how the mobile phone penetration in Syria, is it big? 98, 95%, something like that? Mobile phone, not smartphone.
Yeah, exactly. Most of people have phones, and a lot of, I don't know actually the percentage, but I think a lot of people have the smartphones. But at the same time, maybe it's one smartphone per family. So we can't do like the blended learning or online learning for all the children on their mother or father mobile phone. So we have this gap, and schools at some point last year stopped completely, and some students were not able to follow up with their colleagues and their teachers due to this lack of the devices that are needed for that.
Thank you. Omar, do you see AMBOSS as an offline solution that could be delivered all over the world?
Yeah, exactly what I was actually going to say. And it's interesting actually hearing everyone talk about the different challenges that they've seen in their community. And I have to say our challenge is slightly different than what Claire, for example, described in Kenya, as our population is medical students as opposed to the general population. And most of these medical students, at least from what we've seen so far, they do have access to at least one mobile device, whether that is a smartphone or a tablet or a laptop. Maybe that is due to the fact that they come from a privileged place that through which they ended into med school, and maybe that is a problem in itself. But the fact is, our issue really is not access to mobile devices. I think the main issue that we see there is access to internet, and the fact that if we want to provide medical information to medical students to help them with their studies, they most likely cannot afford paying for any kind of service. Either they can't afford it, or maybe they don't have a credit card to pay for that access, or there are so many other challenges linked to that. And so we see AMBOSS as an opportunity for medical students not only to access information offline, because once they download our medical apps, they can use them offline. But we also, through our nonprofit Global Health Initiative, we support them with access for free to our medical information. That means they don't even have to pay for the access. They don't need internet. So we're trying to hack that education gap this way. And then on the other hand, in parallel to that, we're trying to leverage public-private partnerships and bring stakeholders to the table to try to raise funds to make this program sustainable in the long term.
Thank you, Omar. Well, I think we're doing great saving the world, because now, I'm sorry, so Badr, you wanted to say something? Oh, okay. So now I see that we're doing a great job saving the world, hacking the education gap. Now, after this part of the conversation, I can envision two hacks that are really interesting. The first one has to do, we have a lot of mobile penetration all over the world. Here in Mexico, it's almost 98%. And we are not looking for SMS as a solution. So, and one of the other things that is happening worldwide is, the abuse of smartphones has also brought some sickness, psychological sickness and addiction to the smart devices. So maybe it's not a bad idea to go back to SMS to teach, and a solution that is already there in the hands of the people. And the other one that I see, that we all talk about connectivity issues also. There's a very, very expensive price of the connectivity, even if you have a smartphone in developing countries. Maybe there is a hint there for the government. They own the concessions of the telecommunication. Maybe data for education could be free. That would be a very nice hack because we're helping the country and helping the world, right? So moving forward, let's. I think that you're doing a great job, guys. You're doing a great job. So the next thing on connectivity, let's go back for those that can get online to get an education right now. For those students that are taking online lessons, one of the challenges that the pandemic brought is to get their attention. Students are bored, and that is the worst enemy education can have, boredom. So how are we going to hack the boredom gap? And I think that Badr can start with this question.
That's a very good question, Rudy. And if you talk to a lot of teachers that have access, now that we're moving to people that have access, they'll tell you that, we have amazing learning management systems. We can grade our students, we can track their movements, and we can do all of those things. But it's just we have a very difficult time to keep their attention. And I can speak more precisely about younger kids who already have, it's a challenge even in a physical environment to kind of keep them focused, and they're not supposed to be, focused on one particular thing for very long. So the way that we've been addressing this is using a variety of different activities, mixing storytelling with gaming, mixing a bit of video, but then interactive video, even using this, even if we're talking to them via the screen, ask them to do things offline. So one of the most liked and consumed content on our platform is actually healthy cooking recipes for children, where we actually ask them to go to the kitchen and grab the closest banana and cut it and do a banana sushi with it. And so it does a few things. It's, promotes healthy eating, healthy snacks, but at the same time, gets them to get involved in motor skills and creativity skills and decorating their banana and doing different things with it. And with regards to so I think we cannot lose. And I think over the years, I have learned so much from you, Rudy, on this matter. I think the gamification of it and the mission-based approach should not be dropped, even if we are bringing a lot of things online. We must cater for making it fun and making it engaging and gamifying the whole process, even from the moment that we work with very young children all the way to lifelong learning. The second point you mentioned about mental well-being is so important in everything that all of us are doing, because along with all of this comes a lot of challenges, and I think one of the participants posted a question about that. So I think we all also have a responsibility to address some of the things and challenges that arise out of the overuse of digital and the mental well-being of children, and the introduction of more sophisticated bullying and harassment and cybercrime. So each one of us have their own kind of responsibility. I think one of the ways that we tackle that is along with our content, we started to introducing content that is fun, but also speaks about bullying and cyberbullying and how it's not cool to bully. And we give examples of what cyberbullying is, and we raise awareness through the actual gameplay and through the actual interactivity.
Thank you, Badr. Just one question for you. Are you measuring somehow in Lamsa motivation? How kids are motivating with the content and the application that you're building?
Yeah, so traditionally pre-COVID, we were we used to run a lot of focus groups and test physically with kids, look at how they kind of engage, compare it with physical elements and stuff like that in a lab setting. But analytics is a big part of our work, and again, pre-COVID, we were looking at a lot of consumption analytics, but now we're shifting a lot of our engines into more, algorithm-based, which basically looks at every child individually and looks at various dimensions of psychometrics and says, okay, if a child is engaging more here, give him more of this, to a point where we're shifting, like if a child likes dinosaurs at this period in their life, all the math will be in dinosaurs dynamically and in real time. If they like purple, then it'll be purple dinosaurs in real time versus another child that likes cars that are blue or green. So we're doing a lot of these layers of adaptability and personalization just to kind of keep the child engaged individually at what they like and what resonates with them at that point in time according to the current state that they're in.
Thank you, Badr. Wow. I like that, math with purple dinosaurs. Something that I will love as a child. Claire, how are we going to have the boredom gap?
I love this question because I think we're all even adults are reaching a point where we're probably a bit bored with sitting at home. I, this past month, have actually gamified my exercise and gratitude routine. So I really feel for kids, especially when this is, the time in their lives when you're really growing these social emotional skills. So one of the things that we have done on our platform, even though it is just text message and just interactive SMS, is we always include a practical activity, which is why I was really liking what Badr said about saying, okay, now go to the kitchen and now interact with your environment. You can do that over text message too. So even when we're explaining to students, oh, okay, so here's how you can do, multi-digit multiplication. Now look around your home or look around your neighborhood and see how you can add groups of things together. So I think bringing it into the real world is a really important element of that. And then there's also, at least in our context, usually students are around at least neighbors or friends or their siblings. And so we also try to incorporate some peer learning exercises of saying things like, okay, now sit down with your older sibling and do this exercise with them, or sending out guidance to parents to help them work with their group of students maybe in the home. So I think not relying so much just on the platform, as we've all been saying, but encouraging those pieces of learning that are so important, the social emotional side, that at least can help with some of the boredom. But I think it's still a challenge for everybody.
Yeah, it is, and thank you. That's a really important remark that you said. It's taking education out of the screen, right, to real life. How you actually put in practice what you're learning, and that I think that's a very powerful motivator. Are you measuring motivation somehow with your platform?
We do a lot of actually surveys. So we, in addition to the learning content, we also conduct feedback surveys, asking learners how they're feeling. And so we do get some interesting responses through that, even though we think that texting sounds a bit boring sometimes. I think we all know that we also spend a lot of our time nowadays texting our friends. So sometimes this is a way that students feel, oh, I have a teacher that I'm just texting with at home. So we've been tracking things like that, those qualitative responses. We also track things like resilience or persistence, how often are learners trying again after they get something wrong, how long are their streaks, so to speak. But I think there's a lot more that we're looking to do, especially in the realm of mental health and motivation and social emotional learning, that now as we enter, months, however many, 13, 14 of COVID, that'll be even more important in the coming months.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you. It's interesting that you're measuring also resilience. This is something that I never thought of, but it's quite interesting, and especially in these moments, we should all start measuring resilience within our students. Sana, how are we going to hack boredom? Or how are you guys hacking boredom?
Actually, we don't have this the same challenge as you said, because we're already not working with the official or the curriculum. We're already extracurricular activities, so people come motivated, and the type of experiences that hands-on experience that is they are learning maker education. So these topics they kill boredom usually, and having something physical at the same time, even if it is an online camp, they have their tools online and we interact with them working on that. So there's something that they are working, they are busy all the time with things. So maybe I can encourage you to have some physical components to add to your learning experiences, and it really helps in future ideas about blended learning for maybe startups or even schools, that we have two types of learning, one online and the second one is in our home, or we can take it to school or take it to home. So I think the hands-on experiences somehow, as you can relate to this also, Rudy, in the Gnius Club, is having children most of the time are having a lot of fun.
Yes, indeed. We don't have that issue, you know. It's of motivation because, as you said, but there's an interesting thought here because I think making is fun for any kid, and one of the things that we have been missing in the curriculum educational system is making. You know, we're so into books, into notebooks, that we forgot about making banana sushi, that we forgot about going to the kitchen to group things, that we forgot about putting together things with our electronic kit, right? So I think that there is a very interesting remark there, but we could have the curriculum by making it more fun to make things. Let's make things in our houses and somewhere else to make these things. So before we go to Omar, Badr raised the hand and he wanted to say something.
I just wanted to second what you said, and I wanted you to guess what I got my 12-year-old son on his birthday recently.
A purple dinosaur.
No,
that teaches math. That teaches math.
Drill. My son got a drill, like a big drill, for his birthday, and he was so happy. So you know, making is absolutely important. I mean, as you said. With all the challenges and digitization that's coming with COVID, I've seen from my own home that my own children are spending more time with offline stuff to a point where he had to get his own drill.
Wonderful, wonderful. You don't know this, Badr, but I was a carpenter as a kid because my father has a wood shop. So I learned it when I was 6 years old. I learned it and it changed my life. So I think I became a maker very, very young. Omar, how are you hacking the boredom gap? And don't say that you're dissecting frogs because we're going to have problems in this in the WSA.
No, I'm not going to mention anything clinical. But we do, I mean, you know, with the students, it's either preclinical or clinical. And one can say, in the clinical side, you don't have enough time to be bored at all, based with a whole number of patients that you have to deal with, and that is sometimes it gets quite chaotic. On the preclinical side, and clinical side actually, so both, we do it two ways. So with the medical students, we have on our platform clinical cases and clinical simulations that are role-based. So for instance, two students or more can engage together. One of them can play the role of the patient, the other one can play the role of the doctor, and then they have all the instructions and even a checklist on the platform that they can go through. And so that helps them. And that is quite great for medical students, especially now because a lot of the clinical teaching has also stopped, and that made it very challenging for our future healthcare professionals, right? They need that clinical teaching. And so these clinical simulations help at least the students with that challenge. And we also work with, we support them platform with blended learning. So we want to support them move from the traditional format of teaching to a blended learning format where the students can simply read through the materials that they need before the lecture, and then during the actual lecture they can go through clinical cases together, and they can focus that lecture on answering the questions that the students directly have, rather than talking at them and telling them what they need to know, because all of that right now, they can simply access that offline before the lecture or even after the lecture. We don't measure that motivation per se, but we do measure the activity on the platform, and we see how active the students get once maybe they go through those clinical simulations and clinical cases and so on. And we do similar surveys as what Claire described.
Wow, that's really interesting, you know, and even though you medics don't have fun, as you said, But you have a really interesting remark here to hack the education gap. You know, that role playing is interesting. And we have experienced it. We teach coding. We use pair programming techniques. And one of the tech programming techniques is called the tourist guide. And what you do is actually you sit down and start coding and speaking out loud what you're doing. And then you have the passenger, and then the passenger takes the seat to do what you were doing. So I think this is also kind of the interesting things that are going right now in education. And what you said, flip classroom to understand the text before going into the class, and then and hands-on training. It's much better approach to education. I also believe that. Okay, so let's we have very interesting hacks today, and let's move forward to the next questions. And the next hack, which is a very complicated one, but we all talk about it when we started this with this panel. And I'm going to put a little story so we can talk about this. Recently, we're going to talk about the parents, so be ready. Recently, you were saying that now parents finally they got into the education equation, right? Because that was the missing part before all this pandemic. They were outsourcing education, and they were not part of the whole equation. And recently we had something that similar, because we were teaching kids AI, artificial intelligence, and they were teaching an algorithm to differentiate fish from trash from the ocean, right? So they will have to teach to differentiate first the shapes of fish from the shapes of the trash, and then the colors. And then in the next day of that class, a mother complained that her daughter was playing with fishes in the school, and so we had to explain her. But this is something that is happening with parents. So how are we going to hack the parents gap? Badr, you start with this one.
I think you said it's a complex one, and I agree it's complex, because when it comes to parents, there's multiple personas of parents, and I think we need to find a strategy for or look at slice those personas. So you've got all the way from heavily involved parents that want to be part of the process. They will want to be hands-on. They care about their kids being the best, and they're driven by peer pressure and stuff. And then there's completely disconnected parents that want nothing to do with this. And there's this different shades and in between. So for us, because we work a lot in the digital space, where we can create these personas and talk to each one separately. So the least active or least involved parents, we can engage with them by simply sending an email at the end of the week saying, hey, this is what your son's been up to. Don't worry, they're okay. They're not falling behind. They're okay. And then from the advanced ones, like the ones that really want to get involved, they get access to lots of reporting, dashboards, and analytics, and even can go to predictions where it can say, okay, if they're missing on this, most probably they'll be missing on this in the future. So let's fix this from now. So I think we can't talk to parents because their education level, their upbringing is also different. So we need to find and create different buckets of parents, look at what works, or if we don't have time to cater for multiple personas, let's find a common one that kind of addresses the majority of, like, let's say 80% of parents. But I think we need their involvement. We need to even educate them. So we've been running lots of programs on saying, okay, your kid is at home now, and you need to help with the education process, specifically like Claire was saying, they get a message and now they need to be kind of the disseminator, and they need to explain what's in the message or be part of that activity. So we've been running a lot of professional development or parents development programs by way of courses, by way of articles, blogs, lessons for the parents to help teach their kids, because we can't assume that they all have the same level of education. That's been our experience so far.
Thank you, Badr. And you said really interesting things. I think that one of the hacks that we can get from here is you said that of course, parents are always trying to see, my kid is the best. But I think Maria Montessori was the one that said that we want peace in the world. We need to teach kids to collaborate and not to compete. And I think that's something that we can, as educators, start to change, to teach, to make this, our learning design to be more collaborative than competitive. And this way, parents are not going to be worried to see who is the best, right? And now I'm going, Claire, we're facing the similar challenge with parents here in Mexico. We recently made a study with anthropologists, and they do notice that the education is not as good as they believe. But single moms are facing the issue of now teaching their kids, but they are the income providers for the family. How can we help them, in these pandemic times? How can we hack this with the parents?
Yeah, that's it's an excellent question, because for many of our parents, they're also single parents or single moms, and we've found similar parent profiles. As Badr was saying, there's the kind of low involved parent, and this is not necessarily because of their desire, but of course just because of their time. So we give them little SMS reports, all the way up to, we've actually created SMS parental guidance courses that can help them understand how they can actually engage with their learners and support them. But something else that we've done that others I'm sure are exploring too, is we started thinking about, okay, so even this very basic phone, no internet, those old school Nokia phones that I'm sure we hopefully all remember, or I'm dating myself. Those actually do have the power to also be like a little mini family computer. So what if, in addition to focusing on these individuals' roles as parents, we also help them do what they're trying to do, which is create income for the family. So we actually started also creating financial literacy and livelihoods and small business entrepreneurship courses, focusing on now the parents and helping them with their goals of income generation and supporting the family. So now that's another awesome angle, because now they're getting something out of the same exact platform. It teaches them how to use the system, and then once they're comfortable with it, they'll feel much more confident and able to support their child because they also understand and they're getting value from it directly. So we're looking kind of at the whole household. Everyone wants to learn, everyone wants to improve, either for grades or for better opportunities. And so by taking that approach, we've seen that the parents feel much more confident and willing to support their child because this platform can help them as well. So that's what we've been working on also in the past year.
Thank you, Claire. That's a powerful hack. Teaching parents and motivating them to learn something that is going to help them. I think that's a very powerful path also. Sana, what are you doing to hack the parents gap?
Well, maybe that the people that are interested in making culture and engineering stuff are engineers. So all children of engineers are now coming to learn about electronics and coding, but the challenge is to move to scale to other people, to other parents, to other families. So we are investing in these early adopters of engineering parents in order to have like successful pilots, amazing videos, and we can use that in order to market the products of the children that they made during the workshops and during having the toolkits. So based on that, we work on marketing how these kids are developing self-learning, research skills, how these two things in collaboration with coding, programming, and physical computing skills are the language of 10 years later, and this will enable them to enter the labor market very confidently. So I think it is a really great challenge. We usually used to engage parents in having the kids having experiments that they do together in order to see how their kids are learning and how the toolkits are allowing them to learn a lot of skills and to develop things that they have not developed before, nor through school or other learning experiences. So it's a hard challenge, but we are working to tackle that also.
Thank you, Sana. Omar, I don't think you deal with parents, but maybe you do have some wisdom to share. And that's that's a powerful hack, Sana. I think that addressing the parents, and showing them that education actually can become in something useful to society by showcasing the inventions of the kids. I think that's a powerful hack. Just because this is something that we don't see in education. How can we use it? We are always studying math in the traditional curriculum. We're studying language and stuff, but parents don't get to see what actually is going to come out after their kids grown. So I think it's a very powerful hack to start showing them that the knowledge that they're acquiring actually can be translated in something useful now. Sorry, Omar.
So gonna take it, yes, we don't deal with parents, but I'm gonna take it from another perspective, which is dealing with professors and lecturers and faculty stuff. They are not used to technology, right? And they're afraid that technology will replace them. So a lot of them are very pessimistic when it comes to these digital resources and so on. And I think, the key is really just understanding. I think as soon as they understand that our platform is not there to replace them, but it's there to support them, learning and so on, at the end, teaching cannot be replaced, right? But you always have to have those lectures or those teachers, at least in the medical environment, that will show you the skills and competencies that you need. But as soon as they understand that we're not there to replace them, but we're there to supplement the information that they give, then they actually embrace our platform and they support us fully and they want to be part of the implementation and everything. So I definitely think COVID helped us or helped them in changing their opinion and how they see those technology services. But definitely, I think things are slowly changing right now, and we're hoping for the best.
Thank you, Omar. And I think that you made a very powerful hack there. It's indeed from the design perspective of education, we need to take account the parents and the teachers. You said, and Badr said at the beginning of the conversation, one thing that is going to change forever is the teacher, because they have been faced with different challenges, And it's been said that the teachers evolved to facilitators, and now they have a more active roles, and they're developing into activators. So from the design perspective, we should think on our products and everything to take account parents and teachers. And I have a lot of more questions, but we don't have enough time. But I think we're doing a great job saving the world. I want to take a couple of questions from the audience. The first one is from Julia. She's asking, I would like to hear from the panelists how they have managed to support their students with mental health issues during the pandemic, and what we can do to support children in the future. Anyone want to start with this? No? Badr? I think you started with saying something about mental issues, so can you say something to Julia?
Yeah, I think it's a very important topic, and we have started doing more research on this with the Chopra Foundation. They are very involved in this space. I think you should check out their work. But yeah, there's a lot to be done. I think we need to be empathetic. We need to bring a lot of heart and soul and techniques into looking at children, not just while they're there, but how they're coping with these things, how they're coping with new things. Like I always give this example, bullying in the physical school, as teachers, as educators, as parents, we've kind of like learned how to deal with it. We know what it looks like, right? And we can advise our kids and children and teachers on how to deal with it. What does it look like on the online space? We're still learning, right? So we just need to have more conversations. We need to talk about it. We need to raise awareness amongst everyone, the person being bullied or the bully themselves, on how, you know, this is really unacceptable, and just continue to have the conversation. I think it's early days, but we all need to contribute towards that.
Thank you, Badr. Omar, you raised the hand. Please enlighten us.
Yeah, I mean, medical students and healthcare professionals are faced with a lot of mental health issues, definitely. I cannot tell you what the suicide rate among the healthcare professionals is, but we always hear these stories from former colleagues struggling with mental health. I think what we do at AMBOSS is we try to support students pace themselves. We all know that when it comes to at least medical school, it's very, very challenging. There are a lot of topics that you need to learn. The pace is really, really high. And so we try to help the students pace themselves. And we actually, I think 2 years ago, we developed a learning plan for students to prepare for their final exams. So we have kind of a very detailed learning plan for 100 days and also different other length periods, where students can have a plan for each day, what they need to learn, which questions they can do to test their knowledge, and so on. So we really try to make all the information that they access as organized as possible and as planned as possible in a way, just to kind of try to decrease that stress that comes with organization.
Wonderful. Thank you, Omar. I think this is a very good point. You know, to find your pace and not to be stressed by the already stressful pandemic, right? And this is a hack that we could all use, not only for school, for everything. Claire, would like to comment on this? How can we support children with mental health issues?
Yes, it's been very interesting, especially since now Kenyan schools have reopened, and you're seeing that the rate of students coming back isn't as high as was hoped, especially for the girl child. And one of the things that we heard a lot during the school lockdown was actually from teachers saying, you know, we're stressed, but what we're most worried about is how are we going to support our students socially and emotionally when they come back to school. We know many of them have gone through trauma. How do we support our learners in the classroom? And so one of the things that we're currently investigating and researching is also how can we, again, use our platform to share professional development courses with teachers, you know, of course, general classroom management techniques, but how do you support students who may be going through a tough time? How do you recognize potential signs of going through mental health challenges or issues? And so I think that's one way that, in addition to all the great stuff that my colleagues here have said of working directly with learners and trying to give them advice, but also thinking about when learners are traveling back and forth between school and home, how can you empower both sides in that triangle and that ecosystem to be paying attention to how the learner is doing. So that's one thing that we've actually currently been investigating and are hoping to test out later, a bit later in the year. Because of course, teachers are some of the most powerful figures in a child's life besides a parent, and think that they could be really effective in dealing with these types of challenges.
Thank you very much, Claire. And you mentioned something that is quite important right now. There is a lot of challenges with the parents and a lot of kids that are having a lot of stress and mental issues. But I also think that parents are not ready to understand when the kids are actually having a mental issue. So this is something that we could also start trying to help the parents to notice those things when the kid is actually not doing well before it's too late. Sana, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, sure. Actually, mental health context in Syria is really different because COVID-19 is not that issue in comparison what happened a decade before in Syria, the crisis and its consequences. So mental health was the trend for the last decade for a lot of organizations, and there was very high attention about school students and teachers, and there are some people that have schools having these positions of psychological counseling and school guidance specialists. But in the context of education and digital learning, it's some at the same time, also, Syria has a special case because we only have quarantine for 2 or 3 months, and we didn't have any lockdown after that. So students now are going to school, universities are open, and everything's going in alignment with the COVID-19. But time management, enhancing motivation for the kids through getting the awareness for the parents and for the teachers are things that are making their lives better right now to access the education that they are going through in their schools, and at the same time to learn better through e-learning, through the internet, where they can really polish the skills that they are never learned except in the internet. So there are some skills that everyone should learn, which are the self-discipline, how to research for better education, how to be more resilient. Even our people are already resilient, but yeah, so mental health is something that is coming in the package right now, but the e-learning thing is the trend more than the COVID or other consequences in our contexts, unfortunately.
Thank you, Sana. Thank you. You're right. This is something that we need to address. I want to comment something on this. We, Gnius Club, we're an innovation lab, and one of the topics that we teach kids is innovation. And innovation basically helps you to cope with change, because innovation is about changing things. And one of the transversal skills that we develop in our kids, it's grit. Because grit is something that you need if you want to innovate. You're going to have to overcome challenges. You're going to have to overcome failure. And when they get into Gnius Club, we teach them a very powerful tool that I'm going to share with you guys, which is called WHOOP. WHOOP is an acronym that it's a Wish Outcome Obstacle Plan. And it has 20 years of scientific research in this tool. I will paste it here so everyone can have it in the audience. And you can download the application. And basically everything you do, if you put it into application, once you start thinking of, ahead of the obstacle, then the stress comes down and it's easier to take the challenge. So this is something that we teach our kids so they can actually overcome challenges, and COVID and all these things are about challenges. So grit is, I think it's a very good transversal skill that we should teach the kids so they can overcome any challenge. Unfortunately, guys, we are already about to finish this. So we have 2 minutes left, and I would like you guys to tell us one last hack that you will give to the audience so they can have the education gap, or a thought or any suggestion for their kids, the teacher, the family. So I'm going to go ahead in alphabetical order. Please, Badr, one last thought.
I think as Claire was saying, and as all of my colleagues were saying, I think it's a pivotal time in humanity that we all must learn from. We all must take a step back, look at things that we've taken for granted and try to make the world a better place. Education is one of the biggest industries being impacted. I would just say that we need to bring a lot of empathy and thoughtfulness into everything that we're doing. Even when we think about redesigning, we have a chance to redesign it with a lot of more heart, a lot of more soul, a lot of more empathy. So I would just encourage everyone to take a step back and just think about everything that we're designing, not just because people need it now, but how do we use this change and transformation to making something that's better for humanity.
Thank you so much, Badr. Claire.
Thank you. I will go quickly. I would say that some of our greatest ideas have actually come from the learners themselves. When we do our surveys or when we talk to parents or when we talk to students and ask, what else would you like to see? Sometimes the most creative and fun and interesting ideas, like adding emojis to the text messages or putting some things in different languages for fun. Those little things and those little ideas can have a huge, huge impact. So I would say as we're promoting and brainstorming and trying to come up with new ways to drive education in these times, let's let the learners really be our guide because they are the least constrained and don't see constraints as an issue and more of a fun obstacle to overcome, as you said, Rudy. So I'd say that's my big hack and that's my big kind of guiding star for the rest of the year is let the learners tell us what they want to learn.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Claire. Omar.
Sorry about that. I meant to unmute myself and I ended up turning my camera off. What a way to end this. No, so what I want to say is that COVID-19 brought a lot of challenges, obviously, and we tackle a lot of these challenges. And I can only hope that everyone who listens to us can play their role in trying to improve the situation and trying to change those challenges that people all around the world, but especially in low middle income countries face in the face of their education, because these challenges will not go away. If anything, these challenges will stay here and COVID-19 hopefully will end and these challenges will stay. So we have inevitably, we need to work on these challenges and yeah, and so that's all I have to say. And I hope that our educational system will not face much more hurdles than it did already.
Thank you very much, Omar. And finally, Sana.
Yeah. I agree with all my colleagues, and I add that actually sometimes when we connect with other startups, we find that they find out that the solutions for challenges we've been going through for a long time and we are not able to solve. So maybe partnership is something that we should think about in this era where we can really accelerate our work and do things that haven't been done before. So at the same time, once COVID-19 showed us that everything is possible, even working from home forever. So why don't we startups make the trend and then decision makers can follow? So we should do that.
Thank you very much, Anna. Wise words. And guys, we are already ahead of time. So thank you so much. You saved the world. One student at a time. We will do it. So don't worry. And Manu, we're back to you.